Start recording. Oh, hey there, Bruiser Nation. Welcome back to the Cruze podcast, the only podcast that brings you pro wrestling for your ears. And on this week's excursion of the Cruze podcast, we bring you the main event of Group B, Night 1 of the G1 Climax Tournament. Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Tetsayu Naito. And Bruiser Nation, if you're enjoying the Cruze podcast, leave us a 5-star rating on Spotify or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast and help the Cruze podcast grow even more so we can bring you more great matches here on Anchor.fm, Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Podcaster, and we're on like 8 of these podcasting apps, and I really want to appreciate you listening from the point I started in January to now on December 16th. We are over 1,500 listens of the Cruze podcast, so help us grow, Bruiser Nation. Every single rating and every listen is well appreciated. Hiroshi Tanahashi is out first. Here comes Tetsayu Naito. And speaking of the Cruze podcast, it is proudly brought to you not only by Anchor.fm, but also Bruiser Nation Productions, where you can find game streams, cooking streams, Lego builds, all kinds of things on the Bruiser Nation Productions YouTube page. Also visit our Facebook page where we try to keep you updated with everything. And if you have photography needs, filming needs, or you need someone to officiate your wedding, contact us at bruisernationproductions@gmail.com. and we'll work something out for you. Probably be easier if you live in the Ohio area. I know a lot of you have put things off this year because of the pandemic. So we're going to try to start 2021 off right. I have officiated one wedding for my very best friends in the world, KC Bassard and the newly minted Brittany Bassard. We'd love to help you out. I love to talk. You give me a script. We'll work everything out, guys. If you need an officiant for your wedding, I got you. Bruiser Nation Productions is proud to help all of our listeners any way that we can. Tetsayu Naito is out next, walking to the ring with both of his championships, one of those being the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. Dressed in all white. It's actually a pretty legit suit. It's a long coat, white pants. I dig it. If I had the extra cash, I'd probably get one because it's really sweet. And I'm not sure what to expect from this matchup. Naito is a bit of a brawler. See what Hiroshi Tanahashi's game plan is going to be here to try to counteract the brawling, stiff, strong style of Tetsayu Naito, who eats shots for breakfast. So we'll just have to wait and see how this match goes and where they take it in this 30-minute time limit matchup. Now, if Tanahashi can find a way to defeat Naito, he will really line himself up for a IWGP Heavyweight Championship shot. That's his main goal here, the ace Hiroshi Tanahashi. Naito had a nice white vest too, white button-up, looking real legit out there. Nato's peeling off the red, yellow, white, and black jacket to reveal his, not really reveal, I mean, it didn't cover up his tights, but he's got the same colors on his tights, wearing white boots. Naito is slowly removing his entrance gear to reveal his biking short style, red, black, and white shorts. Knees are taped, trying to give himself plenty of protection. Knee pads as well, also in white boots. Right now he is placed in the blue corner. Tanahashi is in the red corner, and if you recall, New Japan uses the boxing style turnbuckle pads where it's just one big piece. The bell has rung, and here we go. The crowd is fully behind Hiroshi Tanahashi. And yes, I said crowd because Japan did what they were asked, and now they're able to be in the stadium watching professional wrestling with no social distancing at all. They still have masks on, but look at them. They listened, and look, they get to go to wrestling shows and probably concerts and movie theaters and everything else. Bow and elbow tie up. No, it was a nice little fake out. Both men backed off. Once again going for a bow and elbow tie up, and they have backed off once again. Back into their respective corners. Really interested to see Tanahashi's game plan here to counteract Tetsayu Naito and his gruff, strong style of professional wrestling. Naito goes for bow and elbow. Tanahashi goes for a leg grab to no avail. Standing switches. Tanahashi with a headlock attempt. Rolls over, tries again. Hammerlock by Naito. Tanahashi has grasped the head, put him in a headlock, and now they are both on the canvas. Side headlock applied by Tanahashi. Naito is doing his best to try to fight out of it. Force his way back up, rolls the hips, and gets to his knees, and now his feet. The headlock is still applied by Hiroshi Tanahashi. Hammerlock counter here by Tetsayu Naito, trying to use his strength to force the power of Tanahashi and arms behind his back. Is he gonna get it to no, he ducks under arm wringer, counter arm wringer by Tanahashi right into the headlock takeover and back to a headlock. Naito rolls through. Tanahashi grabs the head by his legs. Both roll out, playing a little air guitar by Hiroshi Tanahashi. Both men back in neutral corners. This time, Naito in the red corner, Tanahashi in the blue. Neither man wanting to make a mistake here. Tanahashi showing his appreciation of the crowd, clapping, trying to get fully behind him. Bow and elbow tie-up attempt and a kick in the gut by Naito. 2, 3 forearm smashes to the top of the back of Tanahashi. Irish whip counter by Tanahashi. Goes for a dropkick and nails him right in the knee. That very well may be Tanahashi's goal here, to out-wrestle Tetsayu Naito and work on the leg. A stiff kick to the same knee he just drop-kicked. Once again, a stomp to the left knee. In complete control, rolls him over. Grabs the leg, starting to lift Naito in the air, and drops the knee right on top of his knee. A knee breaker, if you will. Naito is in immense pain from that. He very well may have hyperextended that knee and causing a lot of damage to Tetsayu Naito. Figure fours the legs, wrenches back on the ankle. More and more pressure on that knee to try to slow Naito down and set him up for a submission here this evening, or today, or afternoon, depending when you may be listening to the Bruze Cruze podcast. Slips his right arm in between the legs of Naito, Looks like he's going for an execution, Bruiser Nation, if you remember that old submission move from Edge. Naito wasting no time getting to the ropes. Rolls out of the ring, try to give himself some recovery time and get some feeling back in that knee. He is over by the timekeeper's table where both of his championships lay. Wasting no time trying to get into the ring, trying to get some feeling back. He knows he has a 20 count to get back into the ring, so he's going to take his time and try to counter this assault by Tanahashi. Tanahashi rolls out. Naito rolls in. Tanahashi goes back to the apron, takes a big right hand to the face by Naito. Naito going for a suicide too. Tope suicida, that was terrible. Fakes him out, rolls through the ring. Flipping senton attempt by Tanahashi. Naito rolls through and back in his relaxing pose. No rush to get up is Naito, slowly getting to his feet to give his knees more rest. Rolls himself out of the ring very intelligently, not putting too much pressure. Stomped to the back by Naito. Stomped to the chest by Naito on a Tanahashi who is on the floor right now. Grabs Tanahashi by the back of the neck. Irish whip into the barricade with such force that it opens the gate there on ringside. And remember, this barricade, as he grabs his Tanahashi's head in a vice and wrenches it back over the barricade, creating more pressure. These barricades are solid steel. These are not the black foam barricades that you see in some other companies. Irish whipped attempt again. Tanahashi counters. Naito goes right off the barricade and drop kicks him with 1 foot right in the face. Irish whip again by Naito right to the barricade, sending Tanahashi crumbling to the floor. Naito rolls back in the ring. No rush once again, holding his knee, trying to get the feeling back and the movement back in his knee so he is not hampered in the rest of this matchup. Tanahashi is still down. That last whip into the barricade did a lot of damage. The ref's at 7 out of 20. Naito allowing Tanahashi to come back in the ring, not trying to go out and brawl with him right now. Tanahashi is definitely feeling the pressure here. Naito stomp to the knee, stomp to the chest, stomp to the knee, and another stomp to the chest, giving Tanahashi no break at all once he got in the ring. Another stomp sets him up for a reverse DDT, but drops his head on his knee, locks him up in a full Nelson type maneuver with his legs, almost like a Rings of Saturn full Nelson type of combination. Lazily relaxing in the ring with Tanahashi controlled by the legs. Is Tanahashi going to be able to get to the ropes here? Or is he going to have to use brute strength to get out of this hold? Trying to roll backwards over to no avail. Naito still has it in complete control. Tanahashi's on the ropes. Naito refuses to let go. Tanahashi again gets to the ropes. Naito will not let go. And instead of calling for the disqualification, the referee forcibly breaks the hold. So much pressure on the back of the neck with that hold by Naito onto Tanahashi. Irish whip by Naito. Back elbow and drop kick to the seated Tanahashi. Cover 1, 2. Tanahashi kicks out at 2. Quick succession of moves there by Tetsayu Naito. No rush, very methodical here, taking his time, making sure he doesn't make a mistake with Tanahashi. Stiff shot to the midsection, then to the face of Naito. Another and now an elbow to the Naito. Naito fakes a punch, kicks Tanahashi in the knee, and then boots him in the face. Forces him into the corner. Irish whip by Naito to Tanahashi. Running drop kick. Tanahashi grabs a jumping Naito, picks him up in a scoop slam, power slam move, and hits him with the spinning Yoranagi. And just a little reference, Bruiser Nation, the first time I took that move 15 years ago when I used to be a wrestler, I forgot to hook my arms around my opponent's arm and I landed on my shoulder instead of my back, so that was great. Anyway, back to the matchup. Tanahashi is back to his feet first. Tanahashi as well, methodical, no rush. Elbow, right hand to the midsection. Elbow, left hand to the midsection. Another elbow, forcing Naito into the corner. Irish whip from corner to corner. Naito is able to counter the Irish whip, but gets caught with a flying elbow by Tanahashi. Grabbing the head of Naito, bringing him back up to his feet. Another scoop and a slam by Tanahashi. Up to the second rope. Somersault senton on to Naito. Cover 1, 2. Naito kicks out at 2. Tanahashi looks a little frustrated after not being able to get the 3 on Naito there. I know it's a patented maneuver, but it's still early in this matchup to expect a 3 count. The crowd is firmly behind Hiroshi. Tanahashi runs to Naito, who's in the corner. Naito attempts a kick to the face. Tanahashi catches it, pulls Naito out of the corner. Dragon screw leg whip, forcing Naito all into the ropes, working that knee again. Naito smartly rolls out of the ring, not trying to add any more pressure to the leg. Still on the ground here on the outside is Naito, trying to recover, like I said, not putting any unnecessary pressure on that knee. Tanahashi jumps over the rope, climbs to the top. What's he going for here? Huge, beautiful frog splash cross body by Tanahashi to Naito to the outside. What damage caused to both men. That's quite the jump. All of Tanahashi's weight onto Naito, forcing him very hard onto those thin black mats covering the concrete floor. But that took a lot out of Tanahashi as well. Very risky. If Naito would have moved, he'd have smashed his knees, face, what have you, on that steel barricade on the outside. Tanahashi slowly to his feet, using the barricade to pull himself up, rolls back into the ring. Old Red Shoes continuing his count. Naito is still out on the ground trying to pull himself up after that huge crossbody. 17 count now. 18, 19, and Naito is able to get to the apron, breaking the count. Tanahashi, wasting no time, grabs the leg of Naito. He is split between the ropes and the apron. Dragon screw by Naito with the assistance of the ropes. Dear Lord, and a drop kick to the leg of Naito. Grabs the leg again, and another dragon screw with the assistance of the ropes. This is Tanahashi's game plan. It looks like out wrestle and wear down the leg of Tetsayu Naito and set him up for a submission. As you know, it's very hard to take Naito out in a slugfest, so very intelligently here by Tanahashi to attempt to out-wrestle Tetsayu Naito. Looks like Tanahashi's going for a Texas Cloverleaf. Naito is trying his best to fight out of it, force his way back to the ropes. So close, Tanahashi pulls him back to the center of the ring. Small package countered by Naito. Only a 1.5 count. Naito grabs the leg of Tanahashi, grabs the leg of Naito again. Back elbow by Naito. Spine buster by Naito, bringing a halt to the action. Both men down. Tanahashi holding his head. Naito holding his knee. Crowd once again stomping and clapping for the valiant Hiroshi Tanahashi to defeat Tetsayu Naito. Naito back to his feet first after delivering that vicious spine buster. Forces Tanahashi into the corner very stiffly. Lifts him to the second rope. What is Naito going for here? It looks like he may be setting him up for a top rope Frankensteiner. Naito up to the top. Frankensteiner. Tanahashi able to roll through. 1, 2. Naito kicks out at 2.5. In control of the leg again. Rolls. Oh, no, a dragon screw with Naito on the ground. Grabs the leg again and delivers another one in the other direction. Completely rolling Naito in a 360. Naito is in so much pain right now. That was so much damage done. That dragon screw was more vicious than the ones on the ropes. Going for that Texas Cloverleaf yet again. Rolls Naito over and he's got him, and it's an elevated Texas Cloverleaf. Walls of Jericho style, really cinched in, sitting right on the back and shoulder area of Tetsayu Naito. Still in complete control in the middle of the ring. How is Naito going to get out of this? Squatting way, way down, really increasing the pressure on Naito. Naito trying to get to the ropes. Tanahashi is walking with him to maintain control of the hold. Naito is almost there, but he pulls him back just a little bit and squats back down even further on to Naito, creating even more pressure on the double champion Tetsayu Naito. Old Red Shoes really in there close, listening for the submission. Naito's still fighting, reaching for the ropes, continues to reach and reach and reach. He's almost there, but Tanahashi sits down even further. The pain that Naito has to be in right now, Naito's able to grab the middle rope, forcing the break. Both men are completely spent. If you've never put anybody in a submission hold before, you have no idea how much energy it takes to hold somebody in place for 45 to a minute 30. Tanahashi back to his feet first. Still looks like he's still feeling the pain of that smaller back, but he's trying to fight through it. Grabs Naito by the head, bringing him back to his feet ever so slowly. Naito's no interest at all getting back to his feet right now, still holding the ropes. Finally gets Naito to his feet, going for a fisherman suplex type maneuver, like a scoop slam fisherman suplex. Naito counters, kick to the gut by Tanahashi, whips Naito off the ropes, goes for a dragon suplex. Naito counters, gets him in a straight jacket German cover. 1, 2. 2 3/4 there. Naito is able to kick out. Naito is completely staring at the rafters, looks completely out of it right now. Tanahashi is feeling it at this point. The crowd once again firmly behind Hiroshi. Tanahashi bounces off the ropes, goes for Sling Blade on Naito. Naito, a rolling heel kick. Jumping Tornado DDT, hits it, giving Naito the separation that he needs to try and recover from the onslaught on that knee by Hiroshi Tanahashi. Once again, stomps, claps, the crowd firmly behind Hiroshi Tanahashi, trying to will him to victory. Naito grabbing the head of Tanahashi, bringing him back to his feet. Scoop slam attempt, but countered with a twisting elbow by Tanahashi. Just when you thought Naito had it in complete control, scoop fisherman's buster attempt, countered once again by Naito with a reverse DDT. Both men are down on the canvas. Referee checking on both men. Naito looks completely out of it. That was pure adrenaline, pure instinct with that reverse DDT counter by Tetsayu Naito. Naito's eyes are completely glazed over right now, even though he delivered the reverse DDT. Tanahashi holding the back of his head. Naito's trying to shake the cobwebs loose. Slowly to his feet, Tanahashi, both men on all fours, trying to get to their feet first. Tanahashi wills his way to his feet before Naito. Forearm or elbow smash to Naito, who bounces off the rope and delivers a forearm of his own. Tanahashi responds in kind with an elbow. Naito bouncing on one leg, gives an elbow to the face. Tanahashi responds with another elbow. Both men toe-to-toe, middle of the ring. Elbow shot by Naito. Tanahashi responds in kind, and another elbow by Naito, and one back and forth. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 times. Both men smashing each other's faces with vicious elbows. Stiff shot to the midsection by Tanahashi. Naito eats it, delivers 3 straight elbows. Tanahashi responds with a hard left hand. Irish whip Tanahashi. Naito counters with a back elbow while holding the arm. Another 2 back elbows. Tanahashi drops down to the mat to counter the onslaught of Naito with those ripcord back elbows. Still with control of the arm. Ripcord back elbow and another one and a third. Tanahashi once again drops down to the mat to stop the onslaught, but Naito still has complete control of the arm. Starting to feel it here. Regaining control of this matchup. Another ripcord back elbow and another one and a third and a fourth. And a fifth to a kneeling Tanahashi, releases the arm. He just took 11 or 12 back elbows right to the shoulder neck area. Grabs the ponytail of Tanahashi to force him back to his feet. Arm big time. So 1, 2, right after delivering the hammerlock side slam, Naito covered. Tanahashi kicked out at 2. Naito has regained complete control of this matchup. Tanahashi is out of it from all those stiff shots to the head, neck area. Arm wringer by Tanahashi going for Destino. Swinging neckbreaker by Tanahashi to counter, regains control. Another swinging neckbreaker still in control of the head of Naito. And a third swinging neckbreaker by Tanahashi to Naito. He is holding the back of his head. Tanahashi bounces off the ropes, goes for a sling blade. Naito counters, ripcord back elbow, step up enziguri. Beautiful counter wrestling sling blade by Tanahashi. We are at 25 minutes in this matchup that only has a 30-minute time limit. There's no telling who is going to win, but it is coming down to the wire. Tanahashi bounces off the ropes, delivers another sling blade to Naito. Jumps over the top rope, climbs to the top. Standing straight up on the top rope, Naito slowly to his feet. Cross body by Tanahashi to Naito, quickly jumping back over the top, climbing to the top rope. Looks like he may be setting up here for frog splash. No, Naito is able to roll out of the way of a diving Tanahashi, missing that frog splash. Is this what Naito needs in the closing minutes of this matchup? They're probably at about 4 minutes remaining here. They really have to pick up the pace to determine a victor. Naito goes for it and he hits Destino cover. 1, 2. Tanahashi kicks out a Destino. Naito thought that was it. Control of the arm wringer once again going for Destino. Tanahashi is able to counter, goes for the right hand, a hard slap by Naito. Scoop slam, brainbuster by Naito. 3 minutes remaining in this matchup. Destino once again, and he hits it. 1, 2, 3. 27 and some odd seconds of this matchup, Tetsayu Naito is able to defeat Hiroshi Tanahashi in a hard-fought, back-and-forth technical matchup here. What damage has been done to Naito's knee, and how will that affect the rest of his tournament matches? Will other performers attempt to work the knee as well? It almost worked. The tenacity of Tanahashi was just not enough on this day to defeat Tetsayu Naito. Bruiser Nation, what a matchup. Night 2, Group A begins next week. And we are going to try to catch all the way up. I know it's been done for about a month and a half. Most of you probably already know the winners, but that's what the Bruze Cruze podcast, the only podcast to bring you pro wrestling for your ears, is here for. To bring you these matches so you can listen to them while you work, shop, drive, whatever. If you can't watch the matches, you might as well listen to them, right? Thank you so much for listening, Bruiser Nation. As of right now, we have eclipsed 1,500 listens in 11 months. Thank you so much for listening once again. give us a 5-star review on Spotify or wherever you may listen to your favorite podcasts. Hell, even if there's something you don't like that I'm doing, let me know. It's totally fine. I don't mind criticism. If you're a wrestler out there, you want me to call one of your matches, hit me up at bruisernationproductions@gmail.com. We'll see if we can't call the match for you and maybe even get you in here for an interview about said matchup. Thank you so much, Bruiser Nation. Visit us at bruisernation.com/you or Bruiser Nation. That was way bad. Bruiser Nation Productions on YouTube and Facebook. Once again, we have game streams. We have live calling of matches. We have Lego builds. We have cooking. Yes, I do a lot of things with my son. I try to include him in a whole lot. And if you're so inclined and you have the disposable income, visit anchor.fm/Jason McCarthy, followed by the number 1 to donate to the Bruze Cruze podcast so we can bring you even more matches and more excursions each and every week on the Bruze Cruze podcast. And remember, Bruiser Nation, stay good, because I'm always good.